Even during routine operation, combustion engines produce a lot of heat. If the engine's heat isn't removed, the car will experience a number of issues that will ultimately result in engine failure. You might become stranded if the cooling system fails, and in severe circumstances, it could even result in complete engine failure. Fortunately, a faulty radiator cap is a frequent and simple solution for cooling system problems. If you are aware of the warning signs, replacing a radiator cap can be done fairly easily. And just before we jump to the symptoms of a faulty radiator cap, please make sure you've subscribed to the channel. Overheating engine. The answer to the question of whether a malfunctioning radiator cap can result in overheating is definitely yes. The engine may overheat due to air pockets in the cooling system created by a weak seal or insufficient pressure. The latter reduces the coolant's boiling point, which prevents it from absorbing enough heat from the engine. As soon as it's safe to do so, you should pull over and wait for the engine to cool down if you notice the temperature gauge on the dashboard rising. Overheating the engine will eventually lead to engine failure because the excess heat will cause the parts to warp or take damage. Coolant leak. A leak could be introduced if you try to use a radiator cap that can handle more pressure than the system was intended to handle, particularly if it leads to the failure of an old coolant hose. This might also occur if, after the system reaches the target pressure, the radiator cap closes, allowing excess pressure to seep into the coolant reservoir. If the system is overpressurized, coolant will leak from the weakest point because substances always follow the path of least resistance. There could be a leak at the radiator itself, the water pump, hoses, gaskets, or the cap itself. By warming up the car to pressurize the system and then cautiously checking for leaks under the hood, you can locate the leak. It can be bright green, orange, red, yellow, or blue because different vehicles use different kinds of coolant. Occasionally, these leaks won't show up until the vehicle reaches operating temperature or after some driving time. You might notice a leak shooting from a coolant hose into the engine bay or even up into the sky because the system is under pressure. Hinge the hoses near the suspected leak after the engine has cooled to identify the leak source. The hose that needs to be replaced is the one that leaks coolant when squeezed. Coolant hoses are inexpensive and simple to change on your own. When you're done, just remember to bleed or burp the cooling system because leaving air in there could lead to an overheated car. Steam from engine. Coolant evaporates when it boils and transforms into a steam-like gas. Should your engine start to produce large amounts of steam, it could be the result of boiling coolant seeping out of a damaged seal in your radiator cap. Remember that the engine will overheat eventually as well, so take care of your car as soon as possible. Low coolant. Coolant is leaving the system and won't return if it overheats and evaporates as steam that can be seen. It is, of course, the same with leaks. You'll know there might be an issue if you notice your coolant level is decreasing. Never allow your coolant to run lower than what is advised. Usually, a low mark on the coolant reservoir indicates this. Until real coolant can be added again, you can temporarily top off the coolant level with distilled water. But keep in mind that cooling system may corrode if mineral-containing water is used. Collapsed or torn radiator hose. Variations in internal pressure may result in the hoses tearing or warping. One or more hoses may collapse as a result of a vacuum created when the pressure drops too low. Cracks in the line can also result from overpressurization. Make sure that none of the hoses feel spongy or are hard when inspecting the cooling system. Hard hoses are brittle and can only withstand so much damage before cracking under pressure. Spongy hoses are weak and may collapse. Overflowing reservoir. In the event of a radiator cap malfunction, the coolant may reach the reservoir without the typical excess pressure trigger. This may result in an early release or overflow of the coolant overflow tank. When to replace, you can take off and examine your radiator cap if you think it may be leaking. Of course, to prevent a serious burn, never do this while the car is still hot. Similarly, do not open the engine hood if steam is escaping, as this could result in scalding injuries. The malfunction could be caused by a buildup of debris in the radiator cap. Although it's usually better to just replace it because it's relatively cheap and engine failure is an expensive potential alternative, you can try cleaning it with water and a toothpick. To look for pressure leaks in the system, you can also purchase a radiator pressure tester. Always use a radiator cap with the same pressure rating when replacing one. The car may overpressurize if you replace the cap with one that requires more pressure before the valve open, which can lead to additional problems like overheating or hose rupture. While you're in there, it's a good idea to look for cracks and other problems in the other components, like the reservoir and hoses. Given that the signs of a malfunctioning radiator cap can be mistaken for other cooling system issues, it's possible that two weak points are present at once. After the radiator cap is replaced, the other weak point is probably going to break. Replacement cost. Replacing radiator caps is not too expensive. There are no labor expenses because you can do it yourself with ease. At an auto parts store, the caps themselves typically cost less than $25, but if you want a model that has a built-in thermometer to show the coolant temperature, you may have to pay more.